Hey, what's up you guys, it's Dorothy and welcome back to my channel. In today's video we're going to go into part 2 of chapter 9 of the Mothers and Daughters of the Bible Speak by Ch9 Pt2, so let's get right into this video. This video is going to contain topics of the Bible. If you do not wish to continue, I suggest you click off the video now. You have been warned. I have to admit, my own husband, Sheldon, had suspicions that my dad was out to get him from the moment I first took him home to meet my family. My father was a big fan of pyrotechnics. He didn't need July 4th in order to set off a near-professional display of fireworks. He relished getting his hands on the good stuff and looked for any excuse to light up the sky. The very first night Sheldon met my dad, we had a cookout, and you better believe fireworks were a part of the post-dinner plan. As they started popping and crackling, something went wrong. One of the rockets tipped over and aimed right at Sheldon's head. As it whooshed by, it hit the side of Dad's brick house behind Sheldon and exploded. As soon as it was clear Sheldon was unscathed, my dad doubled over in laughter and apologized profusely. Everyone else's shock quickly turned to chuckles too. My dad was slightly mortified, and we all knew his multiple apologies were genuine. That's because my dad loved me and consistently took actions to make sure I was happy, safe, and had everything I needed. Poor Michael had the antitheses of that in Saul. Michael was crazy about David, and her father knew it, yet he plotted to get the man killed. Saul had planned to use his older daughter as a pawn, and he was apparently willing to crush his younger daughter's heart too. How could a father be so selfish and completely unfazed by the enormous grief his direct actions could cause his own child? With no regard for his daughter's feelings, Saul hoped to take advantage of her love for David to finally push through a marriage. If we can stop and look beyond the struggle between these two powerful men, we see Michael really see her. It's not surprising that she would have fallen in love with David. After all, as a princess of the royal court, she would have had a front row seat to David's heroism when he took on Goliath. She would have been a witness to all of his heroic exploits, and she would have lived alongside him at the court. David had become the close friend of her brother Jonathan, and he probably seemed like a member of the family already. He was a dashing, heroic young man who had saved her whole nation. None of this mattered to Saul. He saw Michael's feelings only as a tactical advantage and ruthlessly plotted to exploit them. Michael might have thought her father was doing a loving thing for her when he proposed her marriage to David. Did she know or suspect that her father had ulterior motives? Saul wanted his daughter to be a snare to her husband, 1 Samuel 18:21. He also wanted to use Michael to further endanger David, but once again God's spirit and protection were on David, and as he went out to fulfill the price Saul had requested for Michael's hand. So before the allotted time elapsed, David took his men with him and went out and killed 200 Philistines and brought back their foreskins. They counted out the full number of to the king so that David might become the king's son-in-law. Then Saul gave him his daughter Michal in marriage, 1 Samuel 18:24-27. If Saul had feared the adulation people gave David before, then handing David yet another opportunity to prove himself as a warrior had not been a wise move. He must have thought it was worth it for the possibility that David would be killed in the process and his problem erased. But that wasn't what happened. David survived, his hero's luster burnished even more, and he married Michal. He was at last the king's son-in-law. Being raised in the royal court, Michal probably witnessed not only David's exploits, but also her father's initial greatness and ensuing downward spiral. She very likely knew what kind of man her father was, or rather the kind of man that her father's jealousy of David had turned him into. What a terrible thing it must have been to watch the descent of her noble father into madness and evil. Saul was the king of Israel, a man chosen by the people and anointed by the prophet Samuel. He had everything going for him, wealth, power, and the favor of God, and then he lost it by his own disobedience and poisonous jealousy. How difficult that must have been for Michal to watch. Michal experienced the tragic pain of watching a loved one drift irrevocably away, and she likely experienced a deep sense of powerlessness. There probably wasn't anything she could have done or said to recall her father to health and wholeness. How difficult it is to be a child of a parent who is making destructive choices. Parents are usually authority figures for us, so what do we do when a parent becomes the one who needs guidance or some straight talk? There would be real friction between Saul and Michal, but not just yet. First, the celebration of a wedding. Michal, the wife of David. If Michal had been hoping that her marriage would ease her father's irrational hatred of David, she was soon disappointed. When Saul realized that the Lord was with David and that his daughter Michal loved David, Saul became still more afraid of him, and he remained his enemy the rest of his days. The Philistine commanders continued to go out to battle, and as often as they did, David met with more success than the rest of Saul's officers, and his name became well known. 1 Samuel 18:28-30. Saul apparently realized that his plan to use Michal against David was not going to work. She persisted in her love of her husband, though once again, perhaps tellingly, nothing is said of David's feelings toward her. Instead of softening his attitude toward her husband, her father was now confirmed in his hatred and had become, in the chilling phrase, his enemy the rest of his days. 1 Samuel 18:29. David continued to flourish as he did his good fortune in battle. Michal's father continued sinking into sin and despair. Even though David's relationship with his father-in-law continued to deteriorate, his bonds with the rest of Saul's family became even closer. Michal was devoted to David, and his friendship with Saul's son Jonathan was deeply rooted. Jonathan even tried to advocate for David with his father, assuring Saul that David had no designs on the throne and was now no threat to him, but Saul was too far gone in his jealousy to believe it. Once again, Saul tried to kill David. There would be no reconciliation. Saul sent men to David's house to watch it and to kill him in the morning, but Michal, David's wife, warned him, "If you don't run for your life tonight, tomorrow you'll be killed." So Michal let David down through a window, and he fled and escaped. Then Michal took an idol and laid it on the bed, covering it with a garment and putting some goat's hair at the head. When Saul sent the men to capture David, Michal said, "He is ill." Then Saul sent the men back to see David and told them, "Bring him up to me in his bed so that I may kill him." But when the men entered, there was the idol in the bed, and at the head was some goat's hair. 1 Samuel 19:11-16. Torn between the men who gave her life and the man she loved, Michal chose to protect her husband. She must have known of Saul's wickedness and his numerous attempts to kill her husband, both directly and indirectly. Not only did she help her husband escape, but Michal also cooked up her own scheme to give David a head start on his getaway. Her father was displeased, but when he confronted Michal, she wasn't ready to take credit for exactly what she'd done. Saul said to Michal, "Why did you deceive me like this and send my enemy away so that he escaped?" Michal told him, "He said to me, 'Let me get away. Why should I kill you?'" 1 Samuel 19:17. I'm going to leave it off right there, and I will see you guys in part 3 of this chapter in the next video. Bye!